Yeah, 100%. But yeah, wow, let's definitely start diving into it, dude. We got the episode recorded, so if people want to check it out later, they sure can. If they want to trickle in, they can. But yeah, dude, what's been top of mind? I think with Magic Eden, obviously, I think that was definitely a big catalyst on Ordinals collections. Bitcoin kind of, hitting that sideways zone we talk about a lot. Like once Bitcoin kind of finds some footing, and kind of just stabilizes a little bit, I think that's where we expect to see Ordinals run a little bit. So I think we're there, right? Like Bitcoin's kind of just in this between 95, 100K band, just kind of chopping in that area. So I think now a lot of people are going over there. Uh, Obviously, in anticipation for Magic Eden, people are squeezing out the last of their farming. So we're seeing ordinal collections way up. Um, what are your thoughts on this? First and foremost, congrats. I know you have a lot of cool stuff that's just doing awesome right now. But yeah, how are you interpreting all this?
All right, first, I do look at Bitcoin dominance first to kind of get an indication of like how's the market looking. And Bitcoin dominance has been down for like ever since it hit like 60. It's been like a pretty much red down, and with the exception of today, where there's like a big green candle on the dominance today to get it back up to 57. So I think it was probably like a little bit inevitable that the Bitcoin dominance was gonna bounce back a little bit, and that's why I didn't really get into any of those dino alts, right? Because I think they got pretty smoked today, and they probably deserve to get smoked, honestly. Um, so like that's number one, and then I just think, um, you had today. I think the market sold off today. Initially, there was a report about like Nvidia like being investigated by a Chinese regulator for like anti-monopoly laws. And then like once that happened, like the overall market went down, then crypto went down, and then you had like all the leverage longs get flushed out, right?
Right.
And usually when we have a flush out like that, that's usually a positive. It means like, we now resetted and now we could kind of build back up. And then with the Magic Eden drop coming tomorrow, I think a lot of people front ran Ordinals and Runes because like you see the price action on them today, like they were up big and significantly. And so I think tomorrow is sort of like let's see what people are gonna do. Are they gonna take their stimmies and buy Ordinals and Runes, or are they just gonna like convert it to Bitcoin or whatever alt they're into? That part I don't know, but for the run up we've had already in the past 24 hours, I mean, I just can't see how it continues up like without any like dip first. I think there's got to be a dip. And then as far as like Bitcoin's concerned, at like 96, 97 right now, it's kind of already rebounded off of the low that it hit today, right? It went as low as like 94. I think the flush outs happened. It's going to probably, you know, churn its way back to 100 and it's going to mess with 100, probably for the whole week. We probably have like a 10K range that we're going to trade in. And so I just think plan accordingly. Bitcoin's going to be about 100K. We're going to have like these occasional flush outs of these leverage longs because like these perp dexes, like they don't want to pay people like infinite money, right? Because if Bitcoin goes up only and these guys got like 20x leverage longs, 50x, 100x, like they're gonna lose a lot of money. So they have incentive to flush these guys out. So I'm just gonna be paying attention to that. Like once we start getting frothy, like expect another like flush like this again.
Yeah, I love the take there, Waf. And I mean, I really think that that's just a super balanced approach to the market. And, it's exactly as we've talked about in pretty much every episode of BossDawgs, right? Like, you got to take profit when profit's given to you. You got to take some money off the table and kind of accumulate prior to these big rips. I mean, that's just kind of what we've seen with Ordinals and Runes. And there have been some really nice developments coming out. Like, I know that people are talking about a rune swap feature for dexes and sexes that are coming out. So I still think we're waiting for that like mainstream adoption when we're going to see consistent volume. But until that happens, I do think that things are firmly in kind of like volume pockets where you're going to get a little pocket of activity where ordinals and runes are running up, and then they're going to pull back a little bit, and then they're going to keep going, and it'll just kind of keep being this little ebb and flow game until we just get a massive adoption of stuff and you get people onboarded similar to you know I mean, Solana's like the main thing where everyone's kind of there and staying, right? Because you just see how active that market is, and it never really leaves. Even on a day where there's not as much activity in the market, it comes flooding right back. And I've been dipping my water into like the AI territory recently over on the base network. And there was a pocket very similar to Ordinals and Runes where it's just like, cool, 1 week, everything's pumping, there's a ton of action, and then it very quickly dies back down. So I still think we're firmly in that range with Ordinals and just kind of the whole Bitcoin ecosystem where people are rushing in and getting their feet wet, getting some purchases, but I don't think we're really seeing that like inflow of new buyers and just daily active traders staying elevated that we kind of need to see to continue to reach those higher highs.
That's a good comparison because like 2 weeks ago, like AI agents and the virtual agents were like all over my timeline, and like I dipped my toes a little bit into it. So I guess it got like frothy enough that it made it to like my attention, which because I don't normally pay attention to that. So I just think like similar to that effect, like once you start seeing people who are not who you don't see in the ordinals chat like every day, like start talking about it, you're probably at like the tail end of that of that high, right? And you're about to dip again. And I think, like you said, like runes a few weeks ago, like we were flying, I think, right? And then we just came down really hard, and like we have these huge like ranges that these things trade in. Um, so like if you sell like a top, it's like it's okay because like price is coming back down later, right? And I think this time around, it looks like it's Ordinal's turn. So like if you want to take profits on Ordinals now and then expect like a 20-25% dip later, like I think that's like an easy way to play it. Like I wouldn't be touching anything that's up 100% in a day personally, or 50% or 60%. I would just wait it out. Like even if you just do buy the red and sell the green, like you'll do well like that. Just watching the ebbs and flows. I mean, I feel like the game's on easy mode right now, honestly, and if you just don't get too excited on the way up, and don't get too scared on the way down, like you should be fine.
Yeah, well said, dude. I definitely think it's time to take some profits if you got it. We've seen some crazy rippage and like it's very hard to project, right? Like this is definitely going to be a pretty major stimmy from Magic Eden. So to your point, are people going to rotate a lot of that back into ordinals? I'm not sure. Like tax season is coming up. I'm probably a little bit more wary some of that stuff than some others. I know some people kind of push it to like the following year and wait until it's like tax season is tomorrow. So we'll see, but definitely top of my mind is that. On the other side, though, it is like Santa Claus rally season, right? So like we could just see a lot of stuff rip faith till the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a nice little bounce out of the market. Wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin crosses that 100K threshold again. And I mean, it has been just so crazy watching. Like anytime Bitcoin crosses 100K again, everything is just max bid and starts sending pretty high. So we'll definitely see. I'm sure some portion of that Magic Eden stimmy will rotate back into ordinals, but there will be some portion of people that kind of back off a little bit and won't be farming as heavy. So, if you have a lot of profit on the table, always a good idea to take some off just to have some fuel ready to buy a dip if you want to. But yeah, well, we'll definitely see. I don't think there's really any way to know until it happens.
Yeah, also like you said, it's totally unpredictable. Like I did not see this like ordinal run coming in these last 24 hours, and prices are up pretty big. Like we always talk about the main collections like node monkeys and puppets, right? And like OMBs. I think those are always like three of the top four or five. Quantum cats. And if you look at the price, like puppets are at 0.19. I think they hit like 0.20 a few weeks back. So puppets looks like really strong and solid in my opinion. And then node monkeys was looking like hella weak. It must have really bottomed at like that 0.1 level. And like you're probably up like 50% from there if you bought then. Even OMBs, I think OMBs probably bottomed, now they're rebounding. So there's some of these ordinals I think could get away from people, and then I think people start um like paying attention to the ones that are, I guess, more priced affordably. And then that's when I think like you see like Nat Cats making it on like number 5 today on in volume, which we haven't seen it in a top 5 volume in quite a while, and it's up to zero point zero 0.02. It literally like doubled overnight, right? So I think these ordinals in that zero point zero 0.02 to 0.03 zero 0.04 range, like they got a lot of room to run, whether it's Nat Cats, Based Angels, or like Bitcoin Frogs. I just think those are going to be the ones that people get attracted to as the price of these other ones run away from them. I think we got Ross still
Sorry,
on
Raf.
mute. But there he is.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I totally agree, man. And it's like the most interesting thing for me is that we're still not at comparable levels to the all-time high. And that's even accounting for the adjustment of Bitcoin price, right? Because like at its all-time high, puppets were at about zero point 0.4 floor, and that was when Bitcoin was right around 60K. So we're talking close to $30,000, I think was the floor at one point. And right now, even with the zero point 0.2 floor or close to zero point 0.2 floor in Bitcoin at 100K, it's only 20K. So it's interesting to see these assets are still down in terms of USD, in terms of like what their all-time highs were. It definitely is frustrating for people who bought a while back at kind of higher Bitcoin valuations, but I still think we do have a good opportunity for these multiples to get back in. And I do think it's going to be a good opportunity to multiply some Bitcoin again once we find like stabilization in the market. And Bitcoin just has had such big moves lately that it's kind of been difficult for ordinals to sort of refresh and kind of catch a bid. But I definitely do think it's coming. And I also think what's interesting is, ordinals kind of caught this pocket of activity, and NFTs came along with it. And NFTs back on the mother chain of ETH, they are sort of popping off right now too. Pudgy Penguin season. Shout out to Silva representing, dude, looking good down there. They're on an absolute tear. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised if when we see a rotation back into NFTs, if we see Bored Apes and Pudgy Penguins come back to life, really start ripping to new all-time highs potentially, or at least local highs. Like I would really start to expect people speculating in ordinals at that point too, and then start seeing a leaderboard split between ETH, Bitcoin ordinals, and whatever else. But yeah, I think we're just still waiting for like a massive rotation back into the JPEGs, and then we'll probably start to see stuff reach its all-time high in Bitcoin denomination.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you think about puppets, though, like if you assume like I say like a $65,000 Bitcoin when they were zero point 0.4, like that's $26,000 at this price. They're like 19,000. Like they're probably the closest one to their actual floor in terms of like USD, but everybody else is off like significantly. And then I think like Pudgy Penguins with their announcement of the token, that triggered a rally in my opinion too, on NFTs, pretty much like between both Bitcoin and on Ethereum obviously. And it's just running that playbook that we've seen work so well before, when it's like an NFT launches like their meme coin, or a meme coin launches an NFT. Like we're seeing that whole playbook like playing out again, right? Like on Bitcoin, it was always the rune with the associated ordinal, right? And that was like puppets, right? So I think like puppets is going to be like the anointed one at the end of the day when it comes to Bitcoin, because they have the token, and the token's like a top token, and then they have their ordinal, which is also like a top ordinal. So it's sort of like an easy, I don't know, like an easy ecosystem there. Whereas if you look at the other ones, they were kind of like forced, and it never really panned out. Whether it was node monkeys and that I don't even remember the name of that rune. That's how poorly it was, right. And then OMBs with their Puka, like Puka did, like started off a little hot and then kind of faded. So no one really has that formula working on the Bitcoin side, as well as the puppets. I know Base Angels has it there, but like their rune is kind of lagging too. So it's not really a top rune. It's really puppets in my opinion. I think like they're the clear winner of this cycle on Bitcoin.
Yeah, totally agree with you there, man. I mean, honestly, I'm pretty surprised because like I really thought that it was going to be node monkeys. They just look so strong there in that like, massive ordinal bull run that we had earlier on in the season. So I mean, I still think it's like a good chance it comes back. It's always interesting to see just sort of the historic price action. So for me, the big thing was just those alien node monkeys that were getting like, 2 Bitcoin sales, just crazy amounts for those aliens and hooded node monkeys. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a comeback in them at some point. But I never really gave a lot of attention to the fact that puppets are just so set up in their ecosystem in terms of having a token and everything. So yeah, I definitely do agree with you there that they're definitely the winners of the cycle. I think they have the most mind share in terms of any community. You certainly see their profile pictures there a lot more. Um, but I've definitely been seeing like an uptick in ordinal activity on my timeline. I think it mainly went away for the last couple of weeks when everyone was focused on virtuals and AI and all this other stuff. But I'm certainly starting to see a resurgence of some of that behavior and talk just because people kind of get FOMO, right? Like I think after the Hyperliquid airdrop and so many people missed out, you just saw a ton of people post about Hyperliquid and started farming over there and just kind of got in on the action. So I do think tomorrow when you start seeing people celebrate and post success posts related to Magic Eden and talk about how Ordinals allowed that to happen to them, you'll probably start to see some people rotating into some Ordinal assets. And now I'm thinking about it, it's like if you got airdropped thousands of dollars and you'd always wanted a puppet and never could get one, and now you suddenly have all this like cash coming in, I think a decent amount of people might buy some ordinals as a result.
Yeah, actually, I was just kind of doing the math right now. Like, for example, if I think we're trading at like about $4 right now, the Magic Eden token, and I don't know how well that's going to hold up like once the token is released. But just for like an illustrative purposes, if it holds at like $4, and someone like you getting like a 40K airdrop, and getting like almost a 50K airdrop, and you look at like the volume of like these ordinals daily, you got Node Monkey's number one volume today at 6.3 Bitcoin, so that's essentially like $630,000, right? Puppets 4.7 Bitcoin volume over the day. That's another 470. Then you got OMB 2.76, Runestones 2.1, Natcats 1.7. So like if you get down to number 7, which is Bitcoin Wizards, they got 1 Bitcoin in volume, and that's number 7. That's like 100K. So like if between the two of me and you have almost 100K in airdrops, and then you're talking about another few thousand people with their airdrops, like these floors could actually rise significantly in short order, because it doesn't take that much money to move them. You know what I mean?
God. Dude, I'm getting so rugged by Discord mute buttons today. Totally know what you mean, Waf. Yeah, I mean they can definitely move pretty quickly. So we'll certainly see. I haven't really noticed the holder counts move that tremendously. Like I was pretty stoked to see Natcats finally catching a big bid. Was checking the holder count because I kind of like expected it to be closer to 4K or 5K. It's still really in that 3.6K range that it's been for like months. So to me, it's still indicative that we're seeing the same amount of traders in the market, and people are probably just loading up or getting excited. And I think that's the case. Like most of the people that I see bull posting related to ordinals, it's people that I followed for a long time. Haven't really seen too many people switch in a little bit. Notably, I guess I saw Deez change his puppet profile picture to a pudgy. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure. I think people are probably pretty nostalgic for their ETH bags. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that rotates into the ETH network. There's definitely going to be some rotation, into Bitcoin and some ordinals there. But I really do think a lot of it is just the same people that have been trading it. So I still think we're going to be waiting for like the next wave of people to get in. I think a lot of that's going to happen again when people get priced out of Bitcoin, because like it's almost 100K a Bitcoin, right? It's not really that easy to afford a whole Bitcoin anymore. So the thesis has always kind of been, well, when people get priced out of Bitcoin, they're going to reach for Magic Internet Money or a puppet or, Doggo to the moon, because they want that exposure to the ecosystem and want to be able to own whole tokens. So we'll definitely see what happens. But I still think we have a ways to go.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Even on the Rune side, like the one thing we haven't even talked about is that like Dog Go to the Moon is approaching a billion. I mean, they're at 780 million now. I think when I looked earlier today before the dip, they were like approaching 900 million. So like that, and then they're getting like additional sex listings. So I think like that's gonna be a big trigger when they're a billion and on major exchanges, and I think that's gonna happen pretty soon. And then like my favorite $1 billion cat, I feel like it's in a nice range. The chart for that looks really good. I'm waiting for like a breakout on that. And then again, Pups. Pups is like very volatile. It's like sitting at 250 sats. I think on the last run, like a few weeks back, it got to like 420. So like that's as a trader, those are like those ones you really like that have like those huge ranges and stuff that you can get into and get out and just kind of play it like that. Um, but everything seems to have rebounded well, even with this dip, even with like these like Dog Odin is now down like 16% today, and it's still like up a lot like over the past week. So I think everything's looking pretty healthy. Um, and it's like and there's really like no newcomers into the space that it's like, oh, get on this, this is the new thing. It's sort of like the same things we've been talking about are the tried and tested, and the ones that you probably need to get into if you want to like play on the mother chain, right?
All right, I just gotta stop muting because it's gonna be a problem every time. Yeah, I love that call on pups. I mean, it's such a good retracement level and definitely just has so much upside given where it's been. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty momentous that Doggo to the Moon is almost at its all-time high. Like that's pretty indicative that people are getting into runes a little bit. And I mean, I've certainly seen a lot of publications about runes lately, just people talking about how it's the next big thing. You always see Doggo to the Moon, you always see pups. So I'd imagine that goes past a billion at some point. Still think Magic Internet Money is a pretty good bet. We saw some fun as a result of the Twitter Spaces, and then kind of dropping all of these like other projects. You said you got the Witch token, by the way. That whole thing has come and passed. Is that right?
I got it airdrop to me. I think you have to hold it in order to get the Bitcoin Wizard drop. If you sell your Witch token, then you don't get the Bitcoin Wizard 10K collection.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just wasn't sure like if that was maybe just sort of a pretend thing from Nomad just to do some performance art or something or get people really confused. Because I mean, I was talking to Max Nod, and him and I were just talking about how funny the server is, and it's genuinely just so much like mind games and random crap going on there that no one can kind of follow the chain of info. But that to me is still like a major part of the ecosystem that I'm expecting to get a major bounce at some point. It's down about 50% from its high of about $10 in the past couple of months. So it's down almost 50% from there. Definitely expected it to be doing a little bit better right now, but we'll see. I wouldn't be too surprised if we see a rotation into that after the Magic Eden airdrop, but that could just be hopium on my end. Other than that, Lab, I wanted to talk to you about Sense because we talked about the collection months and months and months and months ago, some of our earlier episodes of the show. It just has come out of the woodworks and is now like one of the top collections on Magic Eden every day for the past couple of weeks here. What are your thoughts? What's going on with Sense?
Yeah, I don't know what triggered it, but it seemed to be like this like art narrative on Bitcoin that seems to have run. So I noticed like I think it was like Harto was running, Sense was running, like anything kind of like art related seems to be running. Although I don't know why Sense is kind of considered art related, but it is for some reason. Yeah, it was up to like I want to say 0.015 if I'm not mistaken. It ran up pretty significantly, and it was down at like 0.006 or 7, something like that. So it's up quite a lot. I didn't get in on it though. Like I used to own this collection, but I didn't get in on this run. Then I think like the beta play off that was Dimes, right? I'm pretty sure Dimes probably up a little bit since Sense went up.
Yeah, I definitely think it was. And it's interesting because Sense was down for a while. I think it might have even been closer to like 0.003 or 0.004. I used to have a couple of them, and I rebought in. I kind of was, selling out of ordinals for a while, was very focused on AI, but I did see Sense, and it's just one of those things that it's like I could see the people in crypto being funny about it. Like the whole reason that puppets kind of ran is just that the art sort of looked like shit, but then like it grew on everybody. And like, I mean, I love the puppets art now. Like, it's obviously an MS Paint drawing, but it has that sort of je ne sais quoi to it. So I love that part. But with Sense, it's almost like, okay, guys, like the penny's worth $1,000, like mission accomplished. But knowing the crypto and ordinal crew, I wouldn't be surprised if they just like take it to the nth degree of like, let's make it higher and higher. And like it almost gets into sort of performative art at that point, like obviously we just saw the comedian with the banana sell for a few $1 million a couple of weeks ago. So I don't know. Part of me is like Fence was one that I wanted to get back in on just because I think it's funny. And I wouldn't be surprised if they take the pennies and, make them like a whole Bitcoin at some point. Probably not a whole Bitcoin, but who knows? I think it's a fun project and people can definitely speculate and bring those to some crazy spots.
Yeah, I definitely think it's done well, and it's kind of been surprising, and those are the ones that seem to do well, is the ones that are like not hyped up and just kind of evolve organically, and I think that one's pretty much has like played that uh that blueprint, and it's performed pretty well as a result. I was looking at a few other. I think I saw Bitcoin Frogs actually like had a nice run up, and it's now on a little bit of pullback because it was, I think, as high as like 0.045 a few days back, and now it's like at 0.038. I think that one's really good. Just recalling going back to November of 2023, I think they ran up as high as almost half a Bitcoin. So I feel like that one just seems like criminally undervalued in my opinion, especially knowing where it was. But I do like the Bitcoin frogs as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they got pretty cool artwork, and I mean, like you said, it's had some historic highs and was one of the like OG ordinals that ran in the cycle. So I could definitely see those going higher as well. That's a great shout out.
Especially with the stimmy coming, like like I could see a sweep happening on this with it being like where it's at. And like again, this was like for a while, it was considered the first 10K collection on Bitcoin until Node Monkeys came around and came out. But for a while, it was the frogs, right? And if you go look at them with the floor going up a little bit, you notice some of these rarer ones with like the gold hoodies or the gold shades. Their price not that high above the floor price. Like those could be like some good snags out there. I'm even just looking at it right now. Like at a 0.041 and the floor price is 038. That's not really that much of a premium to get a really attractive one, in time for when these things are trading at like zero point 0.1.
Dude, completely agree. I've noticed that with a lot of collections lately. There's really been like a decoupling of traits from floors, and I feel like, back when PFPs were the main currency, that was like such a big discrepancy. I mean, talk about like the floor of Bored Apes versus the mutants, or even just something that had a good fur. But a lot of stuff just kind of goes to the floor these days. So I think if you're patient, you'll see that. Same with puppets. Like I know the Mog sunglasses carry maybe like a zero point zero 0.03 premium, but back when the collection was like in its peak, it carried like a zero point 0.1 to 0.15 premium. So I definitely think with ordinals, if you are buying, it can make a lot of sense to splurge that extra zero point zero 0.01. If it's within the budget to get a lot rarer a trait, and then if we do return to like a huge PFP phase, I could definitely see some of those things just carrying huge premiums.
Speaking of puppets, I think the naked ones are the floor price is really high on those, and it's pretty thin too. Like so, there's like some of these more desirable traits. If you can like steal one, snipe one, like why not, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely was a fan of those. They're just so fun and funny. But yeah, what else is top of mind for you in Ordinal Land?
It's well, I would say not Ordinals, but in BRC20 world, I'm always checking the price on Wizard, and I probably got to share one of my fails. It's like one of my fails. So I've noticed like sometimes like, it must be like a whale like dumping a lot of Wizard on the floor on Unisat, like at a significantly lower price than the next listed one. Um, and every time I try and buy one of those things, like, I get sniped, man. The sats go crazy. I'm trying to like snipe, just re-snipe it back, and I failed twice in the last 2 weeks on some like pretty big purchases on Wizards as a result of that. Because I had like it was like a $10,000 listing listed for I think 60, 70 cents below the floor. So like pretty much a quick 6, 7K gain if you could snag it. But once you hit the order on that thing, like that alerts the snipers. It's in the mempool, and they start sniping it. So wish there was a better way to buy those off of Unisat. But I've been always tracking the wizard price now as a result, because I feel like there's some kind of whale out there just dumping at lower than floor, but like huge quantities. Um, yes, I've been looking at that. As far as like ordinals, like I don't have a shopping list really as far as ordinals is concerned, because I really want to just like sell into strength, and I feel like I have my position. And then when it comes to runes, like I'm just looking for like hot mints, and just holding really, and then like I'll flip, um, like any hot mint. I think I minted that AI, that Mark's friend one. I think I forgot the exact name. Hang on a second. That one did pretty well. I did miss that Notice Me Senpai one, like that one looked like it did well too. Um, Mark's friend Monkey, it's like sitting at two sats, and I think it's the founder of Luminex. He created this rune, and it was running, and then he kind of fudded it. I think he got front ran, and then it dumped, but then he kind of came back and said a few things, and like now this thing's running again. So I do like Mark's friend Monkey. I think that's a new one that should do well with the Luminex founder being behind it.
Oh, I like that. That's a great call. I mean, it's pretty interesting because we saw Airheads by a notable founder flop, but he wasn't as correlated to the Ordinals ecosystem. So obviously Luminex has a pretty big history there with runes. So I think that's a great call out there. And I mean, honestly, FUD usually helps with price action in the long term in terms of like, yeah, short term might have dumped, but probably has a decent entry now, especially if he's clearing it up and it's like, okay, we'll accept the collection.
Yeah, I mean, still pretty low. It's like a $2 million market cap. So super small. But the Twitter's pretty good, and I believe it's sort of like like an AI agent esque or something like that. So I do like the concept behind that one. How about you, Ross? Like, what have you been looking at? What's your plans with your Magic Eden Stimmy, if any? Like what are you looking at? What are you planning on doing?
Um, let's see. I bought some Sense, which was pretty stoked about. My honest play is probably put all of it away just for taxes. Because like I'm still trying to do accounting season and stuff, and of course this couldn't have waited like another month. Don't get me wrong, like I'm stoked for getting it, but it's also like could have been cool to get that on January 1st, so I wouldn't have to pay games on it. Um, I'm not entirely sure. I'm really trying to figure out how to play it best because I know that like there's sort of two courses of outcomes that we've seen for airdrops in the past, right? Like we've seen airdrop comes out, everyone dumps, goes down, doesn't come back. We've also seen airdrop comes out, it dumps, then absolutely moons after. So I'm not sure which camp we fall into here. I've seen probably way more bull posting for Magic Eden than bear posting, but sometimes that's misleading. I definitely think for Blast, I saw way more bull posting than anything, and that one kind of just disappeared. I mean, we were all really diligently farming Blast and just came in way lower than everyone expected and never really bounced back. So part of me thinks that's going to happen. So part of me is definitely tempted to just like sell it out the gate and walk away. But I think there is a part of me that does want to buy the dip on this one because it's just like seems like so many people are talking about it, and Magic Eden definitely is the leading marketplace right now, which is funny because I still use OpenSea a bunch to buy stuff, to be honest. But yeah, like I think my plan is probably just sell a little bit if there's a dip, buy a little bit. But I'm probably just gonna put most of it away until next year. I think is probably the conservative play. What about you? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm probably like short term to midterm bullish on the token itself because if I'm just like running through like a bullish narrative in my mind is that it's gonna trigger that Ordinal and Rune run as a result of that stimmy, and I just think it's gonna have like that positive feedback loop with it, and people are they're gonna love it. The fact that they pump their bags, they use Magic Eden all the time anyway. I can see like them setting up like potential like liquidity pools, and people will just like you know set up put their stimmy in a liquidity pool after they like spent some of it, and I think it should do pretty well. I just considering like the bullish setup that I kind of see like over the next few months or so. Like that would fit my thesis and narrative that it does well, because it on like on the flip side, if it sort of like just gets dumped and like that's it, then I don't really see like anything sustaining. Even if we get like a pump in ordinals or in runes, if Magic Eden dumps, then like once that initial pump happens, I think people sell, and then it's like back to kind of like a dead market. And I just don't really see the market being dead like that. So like I guess that's kind of like how I'm playing it in my mind, is that there's like this bullish setup and scenario or narrative, and these are the things that will happen as a result of that. And then in a bearish scenario, then this is what's going to happen. And I just don't think the market is like anywhere near bearish at the moment. Like I even think by the end of this year, I think Bitcoin ends like significantly higher than where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think we pass 110K by year end or shortly after it becomes 2025. But curious for anyone listening in the audience, what are your guys' thoughts on Magic Eden tomorrow? Obviously, it's the biggest airdrop since Hyperliquid. Very curious if you guys are bullish, bearish, somewhere in between. But hop on up here if you're expecting a little stimmy tomorrow. Would love to see your takes.
Oh, I thought Dizzy was gonna go. I know it drops like 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, so it's gonna be early for like us US folks. It's gonna be right out the gate. So the price action is gonna be all day tomorrow.
Dude, I know I'm gonna have to wake up. Who we got? Anyone here? Silva, any thoughts on the airdrop? No pressure if you can't talk right now, but curious what you've been thinking.
Nothing too crazy on my end. It's 6 a.m. for me and you, Ross, so I'll likely just sleep through it for the first hour or so. I expect Solana to hold up fine, but just based off of using the Magic Eden mobile wallet the last few days and linking wallets and even just their foundation site to check your allocation was kind of overloaded in the first few hours. So ultimately, I'm expecting something like that, right? Just kind of a little bit of a breakdown due to traffic and too many users on it once. So I'll likely just try and sit that out and come back an hour or two later and hopefully, I'm not optimistic, but just still hopeful that we can see a price close to where it's trading pre-market. I mean, I'd be super stoked with $4. $2 or $3, it's not as nice, but still some nice change in my pocket. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Nice, dude. Appreciate the perspective there, and that's a great point on their technical bandwidth side. They did have a ton of issues with getting the airdrop check for a lot of people. I know it took me a couple hours to even like get in there and finally get the wallets linked. So yeah, to that point, I think that's almost a given that there's going to be a lot of issues claiming. So we might see some wild swings tomorrow as some whales get through and sell everything, and other people claim or get their buys through. So it'll be interesting to see, but. Appreciate that perspective. It's been interesting because, like, I know they're only launching 12% of the supply tomorrow, and it's a 4-year vesting for like all of their community partners and stuff, so it won't be that big a circulating supply. But I've seen some like wild valuations on Twitter. I've seen some people calling for $40 a token. I really don't think that's going to happen. I totally agree with you, Silva. I think it'll be a huge dub if we can just hold pre-market. But if there's any chance that we go like 5 to 10, that'd be a dub.
I think we got a
Yeah,
couple of bullish things in our favor though. Like anyone that wakes up early to claim is usually looking to dump, and the fact that I think like farmers kind of got jerked on this whole deal kind of takes away some of the sell pressure. But yeah, if we hold $4, I think that's a huge win. We never usually hold the pre-market price on a token generation event, so I don't want to be like super bullish about it. But at the same time, I do think there's a setup there where it can go to 5, 6, 7, $8.
yeah, I agree fully, Waf. And that's kind of why I'm fine missing the first hour or two of price action, right? Is just what you said there. Usually the first people who are trying to claim in that first or second block right after, token generation, they want to dump. They want to move it to a centralized exchange where there's a little bit of arbitrage, get a whatever 20, 30, 50% premium sometimes. But and I've done that in the past, right? I mean, we've all been together in voice chat for 10, 15, 25 different TGEs over the years, and that's worked in some instances and hasn't worked so well in others. So I'm happy just taking a more casual approach with this, especially because like you guys have talked about, I mean, really for months now, Magic Eden is the place to trade Bitcoin ordinals, runes, all of that. So if you're a believer that that stuff is still yet to really hit its kind of peak market and it still has its upcoming kind of run in this bull cycle we're in, I don't see why the Magic Eden token wouldn't also run almost alongside those, right? Like you see all the ordinals collections booming, you see runes exploding. I would think, then a nice beta play to that would be the actual Magic Eden token, since they have the most robust infrastructure to trade. So I think ultimately that's what I'm going to look out for anyway, and that's why tomorrow I'm relaxed about it, right? I'll claim it when I claim it, no big deal. Because I think whatever it debuts at tomorrow, whatever little peaks and valleys it might have, I think it'll go higher in the future. Just kind of coinciding with some of the Bitcoin stuff you guys have talked about for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, I like that take. And also just for tomorrow, I think you have to claim it on the mobile app on your phone, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's what they've said, which just seems like it's going to be a whole host of nightmares. So I'll wait till someone else has the TLDR on the best way to claim it, and I'll sleep tight until then.
Yes, they have some technical issues early on. It could be some FUD. It could be like a price dump initially on it. It might be like an opportunity to buy it before you even claim it, right? Because if there's FUD early on because of some technical difficulties, that could be an opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, like I said, I don't have nearly as much as either of you guys, Ross or Waf, coming my way, but I'm still happy just sitting on it. And sadly, I've kind of deployed most of my liquidity into other NFTs, meme coins, this, that, the pre-sales, right? So I don't really have a whole lot I could buy, anyways, a lot of buying power. But if anyone does, and you've been waiting, I think that's a great point by Waf. Is you might, if there is any FUD, any delays, anything like that, you might be able to get a much better price that looks great 2, 12, 24 hours later, once everything's kind of cleared up.
Yeah, I would say the other point too is like this Magic Eden wallet. I haven't really used it, but you can trade like cross chain across the platform, so you could trade the ME token for BTC or for Rune or Ordinal, whatever. So I just think like that's a positive for this Magic Eden in and itself. Like it not only is it a marketplace, it's gonna be like the go-to app, right? And the go-to wallet for I guess that native Web3 person who trades on multiple chains, right? Like that would be the go-to wallet if you all in one to do everything you need to do. So I just think they have like a couple of bullish like use cases ahead of them that lie ahead, and like to your point, like we're waiting for this whole narrative of ordinals and runes to run, and it hasn't had its full cycle play out yet. And that Magic Eden token just kind of goes along with it, like pretty much high correlation there, in my opinion. So I think you made a good point about that.
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, thank you for having me up here to just ramble on about token. So, uh,
Oh, we're not done yet, sir. You got to give us the scoop on Pudgies. I was trying to get in your DMs the other day. I get that they're dropping a token, but like, how are we feeling, dude? Like, are NFTs coming back? Honest thoughts.
I mean, not even coming back, dude. Like they are back. Not like we saw, peak 2020, 2021 times, sure, but I mean, big pudgies are at a 21.5 ETH floor, which is about 5 ETH higher than when they made the announcement for the Pengu token last week. So, I mean, they've pumped 5 ETH in less than a week. Lil pudgies as well have gone up like 0.7, 0.8 ETH in that same time period. Um, Azukis are almost at 7. Miladies, I mean, they're down a little bit on the day just because they had their cult claim yesterday. Shout out Sola in here listening in. Thank you as always for just being on top of Milady stuff, linking all of that. Very much appreciated. But over the last 2, 3 months, I mean, Miladies were consistently 5 to 7 ETH, right? I mean, they had put in several 10% plus days where they've been grinding up slowly out. I mean, almost disconnected from the cult airdrop. So I think sure we haven't seen the absolute mania that we saw in 2021, but I think quietly NFTs have been putting in higher highs and higher lows across the board. They kind of bottomed out maybe 2, 3 months ago, maybe a little bit more than that. Um, and I think you see a lot of that is led by the the ones that have just had an airdrop or have an upcoming airdrop, right? Like I said, Pudgies, Azuki, um, the the Barachain collections, Band Bear, Boo Bears, Bit Bears. I mean, most of those I'm looking right now on Blur. Those are all up by 15 to 20% today. Creeps by Overlord, they're up 15% to 2.5 ETH because they're supposed to have 2 or 3 tokens coming out in the next year or so. So I think that is kind of the utility of them, right? Is that they are vehicles for airdrops from these other ecosystems, chains, what have you. And I think that is kind of driving a lot of this price action. And I mean, yeah, simple answer. I do think NFTs are back and they've been quietly cooking for several weeks, if not a little bit longer.
Xbox clip that. Dude,
Yeah.
that was such a well thought out response.
Yeah, I agree with you, Silva. Like they've been like cooking under the radar and like getting in now. You're paying a higher price. I mean, like penguins are up 50% in the last 7 days, right? And little pudgies too. I mean, so if you've been paying attention, things looking good. I do see the speculation on Azuki now with the anime coin, like people getting ready for that and buying Azukis. I guess I'm curious on your thoughts about those NFTs from that used to have sky high floor prices back in the day that still to this day have like a negative narrative. And if do you think there's like a potential opportunity for those, like say like a Moonbirds, for example, or like a Clonex, right? They just had like such bad negative vibes. But at one time, Moonbirds had a 40 ETH floor, Clonex had like a 25 ETH floor. Like, can those come back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think some of them can. I think like if I had to give just a broad answer, I would say no. Like specifically thinking about like moonbirds, right? I don't see anything on their horizon that would inspire confidence or even just speculative positive price action, right? I mean, they're under the Bored Ape ecosystem now because Yuga Labs owns them, so you might get to like use it in their other side game if that ever launches, but they've already launched ApeCoin, so I don't expect them to launch a separate coin for Moonbirds because they haven't really even done anything with that acquisition. So, I mean, really, I would take it case by case and say Moonbirds, no, I don't. Clonex, Clonex is a much more intriguing buy to me, especially at these low levels. I mean, 0.27, so like a quarter of an ETH for one. I probably wouldn't feel bad putting in a bid if I got one accepted there, just on the off chance that it gets some sort of CTO or someone comes and buys the rights for it from maybe just even the NFT collection or the IP rights or something from Nike just to keep it going. And that could be some cult figure in NFTs like OG Farmer, right? One of those kind of big crypto Twitter personalities, or even one of the bigger like DAO like entities, right? Like there's the Squiggle DAO, which holds a massive collection of squiggles. There's Xcopy DAO. I could see a big DAO trying to buy the rights and rejuvenate it. And I do think you know putting it back in the hands of the community, while it doesn't actually give any extra utility, it is the kind of feel good story that could cause a pump. So I wouldn't feel bad about taking a bid on a Clone X and trying to hit that. And then you also have something like Doodles, right, where Doodles are at 2.7 ish floor. I mean, they've been steadily rising, but they do have a speculated airdrop coming sometime in the future, right? They have a leaderboard, they have staking, so they're doing all the Ponzi-nomics. So I think that those are kind of three different test cases where Moonbirds, absolutely nothing on the horizon. I don't see them having any kind of positive value, so I wouldn't buy. Clonex, I'd be okay, trying to maybe grab one on a bid because of the speculation of a community takeover. And if that were to happen, they could then also do their own airdrop and just kind of create value out of thin air that way. And then Doodles being the much safer option, just because they are likely to have a coin and an airdrop at some point. So yeah, like I said, Wolf, I think you take it one by one, but I definitely think that there are some projects that are out there you can find a convincing angle for why you might want to buy it.
I absolutely love your takes. I threw Moonbirds out there just to see like what you thought about it, but I agree with you. Like I don't have any interest in them, but CloneX is very intriguing to me. I didn't know that Nike still owned the rights to it. I thought like Artifacts still owned it. I thought Artifacts launched this before that Nike buy, but maybe I'm wrong. But the fact that I think they're not necessarily going away, and in the past they've airdropped plenty of things as part of like their Artifacts products, right? So it would not surprise me if there is like what you said, like a community takeover or someone just like leading it, and then there's like an airdrop of something, whether it's like another NFT or a token would be sort of like the best case scenario. There is some like intriguing things about CloneX, and then I think Doodles has actually been doing really well. They have a lot of drops on Base on the Coinbase wallet. I don't know if you noticed any of those, like those boxes, and I know they have like the McDonald's agreement. So I think like Doodles has
Yeah.
been doing a lot, kind of like low key, and it's been building up. And even their floor price at like 2.7, 2.8, it's probably like underpriced, comparatively when you think about these other collections too.
I couldn't agree more, Waff. I mean, first things first. Sorry to shit on Moonbirds there. Um, and you might be right about that artifact piece. I just assumed Nike owned all the IP stuff because they bought Artifact, but I mean I might be wrong there, so take that all with a grain of salt. Um, and then Doodles, I agree with your take as well. I think they're honestly undervalued where they're at. I mean, we've seen Azuki pump 20% in the last 7 days, and because of that anime coin speculation. Doodles has only pumped about half that, about 10%. And I think once there is, more noise and more, Twitter threads and more farmers talking about the potential of a doodle coin, I think that's when we really see the hype kind of lift off for them. Because I mean, just a month or two ago, Azuki were sitting under 4 ETH, right? So they're on their way to doubling that in a month or two, and I could see Doodles pulling the same kind of move from 2.5 or 3 up to above 5 or 6, right? Because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't see any talk of Doodle coin or Doodle token anywhere on my Twitter timeline or really anywhere except for a few kind of chats here in MVHQ or some other groups. So you convinced me, Wolf. I might go throw in a bid on a Doodle once we're done wrapping up here.
Yeah, I think I might get a Clone X.
I love it, bro.
All right, yeah. I'll put some Magic Eden Stimmy to good use on a doodle.
There we
Hey,
go. Speculate.
dude, I want to. I miss changing PFPs, but Ski Mask Dog just is so funny.
Ski Mask Dog goes hard. You're not wrong there.
Dude, he's like Whiff but grittier, I've been saying.
The whiff from the streets.
Dude, exactly. He's from Philly. All right. Well, anywho, I now have the hiccups as I just chugged a Topo Chico in the background, so that's a fun one to end the episode on. But we are just about the hour mark here. Silva, appreciate you popping in as our little guest there, dude. Always great to hear you. And for those of you who enjoy hearing Silva and his takes, make sure to tune into Fantasy Top Down this week for some more awesome takes. It should be regularly scheduled programming this week, right?
Yeah, as of right now, we're planned, our regular time. So hopefully see everyone there on Twitter for the live show and appreciate the shout out. And thanks for just having me up here, guys. I know I can ramble a bit, but living in
No,
NFT
not at
world
all.
non living in NFT world nonstop for the last 4 years, you develop an opinion or two, turns out.
Dude, not rambling at all. I definitely talk people's ear off about AI these days, and we'll just like, inject into any conversation 20 minutes in. It's like, well, time to hijack it and talk about crypto for the next hour.
Hey, for most of us here, we were in that NFT cycle, and it was probably like our primary thing, right? 2021, 2020.
Mhm.
So it's there's like a bit of nostalgia there, right? And you get nostalgic seeing this stuff going back up, and you want to jump in, you get the FOMO, right? You just can feel it. You do feel like it's back, and whether it's like CryptoPunk's price has like gone up significantly in the last 30 days, and even apes. I mean, everything's kind of up really at the end of the day. And I think people are gonna start gravitating towards PFPs again, man. It just feels natural.
Yeah, I think, we hear a lot about the most hated kind of rally, right? Whether it's everyone shitting on ETH for, months on end, only for it to, be bumping up against its all-time high or, 4K heading toward all-time high again. Well, I think we're going to see something similar with NFTs. OGD Farmer talks about it a lot. Deez talks about it fairly often. And, the more I see it, the more I believe it is just that people want a way to flex their wealth, right? Whether that's in the real world with cars, with watches, with, luxury designer brands, what have you. I think our silly little world online is the exact same way, and we saw it before when people were paying 100 ETH per ape or 500 for an aesthetic one or a gold fur or whatever kind of BS it was. I think we won't see it to the same extent, but I do think we'll see that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, right? So we're going to see some NFTs go stupid high, much higher than they deserve to be. Um, and I'm here for it. And I think we've seen these signs before, like Waff said, 4 or 5 years ago when we were all starting out. I can remember being in the trenches with Waff, with Ross, with everyone here in voice chat, minting and flipping and doing all that. So all of these signs kind of feel familiar, like right before we had huge, massive run-ups in ETH NFTs the first time. So excited to run it back with the fam here and chase that gen wealth.
Yeah, let's do it.
What rhymes with Cold War? No, that's just what you said. History rhymes. That was what popped into my head. But absolutely, let's run it back. All right. Well, Sylvia, you could join us for the favorite part of the show. As you know, we like to sign off with some Bitcoin predictions for next week, just for the lulz and nothing else. But let me get the live read here, and then we could submit our takes, and then wrap this one up. But we got a nice little liquidation candle on the day here. So Bitcoin is chilling at $96,819 to close out this week's episode. Mr. Waff, what do you predict? Higher, lower? What we got for next week's episode?
Oh, definitely higher. There's no doubt about it. I'm gonna go 105. I think we're gonna break all-time high during this week. I don't know if we'll be at 105 when we reconvene on on our show, but we're gonna hit 105 this week.
All right, 105. And bonus prediction here. What is the Magic Eden price going to be next week's episode?
Ooh, that's a good one. Oh, that's really good. I'm gonna say in along the lines of the most hated rally. I'm gonna say $6.
Ooh,
All right.
spicy.
That is very spicy. All right, Silva, you are in the guest seat, sir. What do we got? Bitcoin a week from today.
Well, first I just have to say, Waff completely front ran me there. I had written down 105 as my target for Bitcoin. So, nice little validation for myself there, but I don't want to just blanket agree with Waff. So I'm gonna go for my next kind of price target and say we're gonna be at $112,000 Bitcoin.
Oh man, dude, that is even spicier. And your Magic Eden price prediction a week from today.
My Magic Eden price prediction, I'm gonna put it right about like I'm gonna say right around $5. I definitely think we're gonna run harder than people expect. To even closer, maybe even past Waft's $6 kind of thought there. But I do think Bitcoin will make new highs next week, and because of that, I think some alts like Magic Eden will pull back as people rotate. So I'm gonna say let's go with $5.
I love it. All right, I will
Ross,
close out
final
the
thoughts.
channel.
What about you?
I'm gonna go with 101,300 for Bitcoin, and I will go with $3.48 for Magic Eden.
Oh, the realist came in. The realist.
You've seen our show.
All right. Well, the Moon Boys are going to be off in a different corner. Waff, let's go.
All right, and with that, the Moon Boys and the Realists part ways. It's been a great episode as always, gents. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Later, guys.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, fellas. Take it easy.